Hi, my name's Ryan from the Airbnb Formula, and today I'm going to show you how I make fortunes from using Airbnb with other people's properties and no debt. So my journey all started with a one-bed flat that I couldn't get rented out. I had absolutely no idea what Airbnb was several years ago, and now I've got a portfolio that's hopefully going to make £1 million a year just from Airbnb alone. Now, this all got started for me by solving a problem. So I couldn't get a tenant into this flat that I'd taken on a lease option, and I was panicking. I didn't want to lose any money. I'd spent a bit of money refurbing the flat. I'd had 7 or 8 viewings on this place, and I just couldn't seem to get it to rent. So I was having a coffee with a friend. He told me about Airbnb, and this is where I discovered Airbnb was a thing. Didn't know what it was, how it worked, but after he told me, I went straight to IKEA and bought some furniture, furnished the property. Took some pictures with my iPhone, very basic stuff here. I was just trying to solve my own problem, try something, to generate money out of this business. And before I knew it, I had £3,500 worth of bookings within 5 days of listing the property, and I was hooked, absolutely hooked. I then had a couple more properties that were going through the conveyancing, so I decided to put them into the Airbnb strategy as well. And again, the same sort of thing happened. The minute we listed it, it just got booked more and more and more. So I want to talk about the numbers and why investing in property is better to do it as a rent-to-rent basis at the start for cash flow rather than doing it as an acquisition. So to buy this flat would have cost me the thick end of £35,000, including deposit, stamp and legals. Now, instead of putting £35,000 into one property, and at the time I was only going to rent it out, so I was looking to make £200-300 a month from it. Now I make north of £1,000 a month from this property on average. So what I did, was use money going forward after that to get more properties. And renting them off a landlord means that you can acquire more. So let's look at the numbers. So first and foremost, we've got £35,000 that would have cost me to acquire that property. That's just, that ain't going to scale for most people unless you've got pockets of cash or a trust fund. But instead, if we say the average setup is, let's say £5,000 for example, on a rent-to-rent basis, and that's extreme by the way. You can do them. My cheapest has been £400. My most expensive has been £8,000. But if we stay around sort of, let's just assume, a £5,000 setup. That means that we can get 7 properties set up from the same amount of money that I would have had to use to buy this one property. 7 times 1,000 is £7,000 a month cash flow rather than the £1,000 a month cash flow from the one unit that I own. So you can see the power in moving the money from acquired properties that you own into rented properties that you can work with landlords on. You can turn them into Airbnb using the Airbnb formula, and you can make up to £1,000, sometimes more. I've got rent-to-rent properties that make more. The bigger properties, the blocks of stuff, they can make more. But on average, you're making somewhere between £500 and £1,000 per unit per month. And you just times that by how many units you can get hold of. So what I then did was reinvest the cash into my net assets, because ultimately you want to build your own foundations and you want to have your own stuff as much as you possibly can. But I think a good mix between the two is a fantastic diversification of your property business. So I then started to use the money to acquire more rent-to-rent properties in the beginning, and then once it got to a point where the cash flow was quite significant, I then started to buy more of my owned assets. And that was a game changer, and that's how I've built my 7-figure property empire. So always be looking to reinvest the cash back into your own, but get started on quick cash flow and opportunities. And for me, that's the rent-to-rent model. Now, you can do this with landlords. All you got to do is solve their problems. The problems landlords typically have is they have voids on their properties. They've had tenants passing through, transitioning through, maybe on average 14 to 18 months, and then they leave. 3 or 4 month void period, and then they get another tenant in. So these landlords are just wanting a bit of consistency with their money, and they might have had a lot of hassle with a tenant. A tenant might have damaged that place. They might have just not paid. There might be void periods that they're chasing, and it all becomes a bit of a hassle. So make sure that you're solving problems for landlords, and you'll start to pick up a lot of these rental properties. Use the rental properties wisely through Airbnb by hosting guests and making the difference in the profit, and then you reinvest that profit into your own property portfolio, buy those assets, and before long this business scales very, very quickly. And if you're good at it and you systemize it and you've got good operations and people around you, then it becomes a business where you work less and you earn more money, which is obviously a great place to be. So if you want to get stuck into the rent-to-rent game, head over to my LinkedIn page. In the bio there's a flow page link, and in there is loads of awesome content for you to download. You can get the Airbnb Formula Success ebook. There's loads of other ebooks in there. There's a service accommodation webinar in there. Loads of great stuff. Get yourself over there now, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel to ensure that you get a notification every time we release more videos like this.